Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
That is provided as part of Hibernate. So folks, just try to understand it. We are going to do examples with this so that you understand it better. Okay? Probably we'll discuss this today, and in next class we will see examples. I mean, I always think when we see examples, we understand better. There's no point in just explaining the theory again and again. So first we discuss theoretical on what the purpose and everything, and then we see examples. So how do we use it? If it is a set, list, or a bag, we have the tag and we have the name. So basically the name of the variable that we use for this specific set. And the key column, the column which we are going to map is we specify the column here, and there are different kind of mappings, one to many, many to one, and all these things. So we specify the mapping. So for example, we have one to many. In the one to many, we specify the class which we are trying to map. So that specific syntax we have for list, we specify the key column, and we specify the mapping here. But if you see, when we specify a map, we have a key and we have an index that we associate with it. So this is basically we use those tags specifying the name and the specific mapping, like one to many or many to one. So different kind of mappings that we have are many to one, one to one. Let's say folks, an employee has an address. So an employee is going to have one address. Let's say just storing one address. So it's a one-to-one mapping. In such a way that we have different kind of mappings, many to one, one to one, one to many, and many to many. So how we exactly specify this? Let's say we have an employee class, and employee has many addresses. One is the work address, and one is the home address. I'm sorry, here we are seeing the many to one. So we have an employee that we are mapping. We specify the ID and we specify different properties. Let's say there is an address that we are specifying. This is the variable this is going to be a variable in the employee class. The name, what we specify here, it is a variable in the employee class. The column, let's say we have an address ID, let's say. In address, we have an address column. That is what is the column. Basically, the address table and the employee table are mapped with this specific column. And whether this column can be null, we specify not null is equal to true, means this particular column cannot be null in the employee table. So this is the address mapping. Of course, when we're using here, when we say class is equal to address, we have to do a mapping for this class also. Otherwise, the Hibernate doesn't understand, with the mapping on how it has to operate on this class, because to which table it is binded with. We have to, the Hibernate has to understand. So this particular class definition is mandatory. And you see, folks, in one hibernate mapping, we are mapping two different classes. So different kind of mapping. You know, if it is one-to-one, we specify it as one-to-one mapping. We match it with the class and we provide on the column name also.
Neha, what is many to one above? I see only like there is one other class, right? That is address that is interacting with the employee table.
That is, we just provided that might not be an ideal example. Many to one means there are different. We have a table which contains the state of an employee, right? Mm-hmm. So a state to employee is going to be many to one, right? It's like many employees can be in the same state, right? Let's say we have two states, active and inactive. Right? Many employees can have the same state, right? Because an employee can be either active or inactive. So we have 10 employees who are active and we have 10 employees who are inactive. So many employees are in the same state, right? It is many to one mapping. I mean, the example is there, it is not ideal. But many to one mapping is many employees can be in the same state, can be, right? That is many to one mapping.
Okay.
See, we have an employee in a department. Many employees can belong to the same department, right? That is many to one mapping.
Okay. It's like, okay, I get it.
Okay, folks, you understand the kind of mapping? Many to one is basically many classes of the entity can have same, single association with other entities. So, I mean, this one-to-one or one-to-many is the same as, in Venn diagrams or in sets, we do one-to-one, one-to-many mapping. Remember, folks?
Yeah,
it is the same. So, see, a one-to-many example, let's say an employee has many addresses. One is, let's say an employee has two addresses. One is the work address and one is the home address. Right? It's one-to-many. Is that clear, folks? Let's say if you're making an employee has only one address. Let's say. So we do a one-to-one mapping with the address. Right? Let's say if you're mapping employee to a state, wherein a state can be an active or inactive state. So we have a table, let's say employee state, which has one, an ID as one as active and two as inactive. So many employees can have the same state, right? It is many to one mapping. Folks, are the mappings clear? These mappings are just, as we read in schooling, like the set mappings, one-to-one, one-to-many, right? So they are the same as set mappings.
In the end, we are just like accessing another column in another table. That's it, right? How does that?
No. See, we are specifying on this column, this particular value is going to bind with a specific column of this table is what we are mapping it.
Okay.
It's like a SQL with where all the employee department is 20. So is it for retrieving of data?
I mean,
you map for? Or
see, when we get it, we get that specific object also. It's not only for retrieval, even when you're inserting or when we are deleting, we can specify when we delete the parent, we want to delete the Salesforce. We can make all that kind of things. Do that. It's like an entity, how exactly we have it. I mean, the entities on how we are related, that's what we do this mapping stuff, right? It's not just for retrieval. Let's say when I delete a department, I want to delete all the employees in the department also, right? Then also we use this association.
Yeah.
You understand?
Okay.
It's basically sorry.
Sorry, go
on. You're basically trying to, like whatever we do in database manipulation in general, like you're basically setting up that ahead of time, right?
Yes, that's what mapping. If you want to manipulate that associations also, we have to do this association mapping, right? In general, we want to do it because in a real time when we have an entity, it's not just that entity. It's related to some other entities that we are dealing with, isn't it? When you create a table, when you create another table, usually we don't create an isolated table, right? There are some tables which contain the states. Even those tables, they are used, the information is used in a different table, right? It's like the relation between the entities, right? Okay, and someone else is asking doubt. I'm not sure. Venkat or someone?
Yes. So here, if I just correct me if I'm reading it right. So an employee can have many certificates. That is what.
An employee can have.
Employee ID can have many certificates. That is what.
See, basically, an employee can have many certificates.
Okay. So.
Right. So in employee table we have one single record, and in certificate table, let's say we have multiple certificate records for that employee. Right?
Yeah.
So it's one to many.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Right? So in the certificate table, let's say we have an employee ID and the certificate ID. I'm just giving an example. So this employee ID is referenced from the employee table. Right? I can say I have 3 records for the same employee with different certificates. You understand it, folks? Folks, before we proceed, do you understand this, everyone?
I think with the example it will be more clear.
You know, when you understand the concept, we are anyway going to see with examples that I'm asking. Do you understand the concept of one to many?
Yes.
Rahul, what is it that I didn't get you when you say that? Saroj, we're going to discuss what's the bag. It's not. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
What that type was? Yes, I do understand that.
Okay.
Neha, one doubt. This one-to-many and many-to-one tags are set when these tables are having foreign key relationship between them.
Yes. That's how, for the data integrity, yes.
Okay. So even if we are not using if I have a table 1 and which has got a foreign key relationship to table 2, even if I'm not using this table 2 in my Hibernate code, do I have to see this?
See, we do this association only when we are using it. Why do we create a table when we are not using it now? We don't create it, right? We don't create any table wherein we don't use it at all. We don't do that, right? So when we create a table, it's somewhere used. We somewhere use that table, isn't it?
Oh, anywhere in the
application, of
even
course.
If we are using it, we have declared like one-to-many relations here. Right?
See, for example, if it just you're populating, when we have an entity, we are trying to associate it somewhere, right? We don't create a table just like that. There is some purpose for it. There is some, there's some kind of requirement for the creation of the table, right?
Okay. And,
so we're going to use it. We just don't create tables unnecessarily. We don't do that.
Okay, but now I have got a doubt where we use this one-to-many and where we use this many-to-one.
Let's say an employee has many certificates. It is one-to-many. Okay?
Okay.
You understand that? One employee has many certificates. Is that clear?
Yeah.
One record in an employee table, and you have for the same employee ID multiple records in the certificate table.
Okay.
One-to-many is clear. An employee has many certificates.
Okay.
Okay? I have an employee table, folks. Everyone, please pay attention. Employee table, I have an employee. Okay? I have a table state which says active or inactive, and I have the state or status in the employee table. Right? So many employees can have the same status. Right? For employee, I say either active or inactive. So I can have 10 employees with active status and 20 employees with inactive status. Right? So many employees have the same status. That kind of mapping is many to one mapping. Folks, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, you will be more clear when we do the example, but at least you understand the association when we many to one, or when we do one to many. Because how to do it is anyway we're going to see in the code, and it makes more clear for you. But you understand the association as such.
Okay. Thanks, ma'am.
Folks, everyone, you're clear with the one to many and many to one mappings? From the concept perspective, what a mapping is.
Yes.
So, see, we use it in a, yeah.
So here you're not just talking about between the two tables only, right? You can have like many tables also, right?
You see, from one table, we are trying to map one class. We are trying to map that particular thing, right? It can be mapped with, an employee can be mapped one to many with certificates. And here, we can say an employee is mapping many to one with status also, right?
Correct. That's what here I am.
Yeah, that's what I'm answering you.
Like, I understood like it's only between two tables here. Whatever.
Yes, see, one association, this is between two tables. If you want to correlate with it, associate with a different table, you have to write one more set or one more list, whatever you're exactly trying to get here, right?
No. Yeah, it all depends on how we have the data in the different tables.
Yes, how the entity is associated. An employee entity is associated with one-to-many relationship with certificate. And an employee entity is associated with a many-to-one with status. So we're going to put both of them, right?
Yeah.
So we use this collection. So when we are handling more than one object, we need to use any collection. When we are using set, we use set, and inside that we specify the one-to-many mapping with the specific class. When you're doing that, this mapping also, the mapping for this class also should be specified like this. It's the same as like mapping. We map all the columns and with the variables in the certificate. So whatever we are using here, we have to map that class also. It's mandatory to map that class. Otherwise, Hibernate doesn't understand with which table it has to associate on the column and all the info, right? So we have to do the mapping also.
That mapping column will be the foreign key in another table? In that case?
Yes. Yes. It's better to make it as a foreign key for data entry. Otherwise, if it is not coming as proper, we have to specify the foreign key constraint.
Yes.
Folks, you see here, we have many-to-many mapping. When we do many-to-many mapping, when we have, like, say, there is an ID for SCJP certification. There is an ID for SCBCD certification, right? One student can do multiple certifications, right? And same way, one certification can be done by multiple students. You understand this? You understand the mapping? Many-to-many is one student. Let's say we have students and we have certifications. Let's say, there is a certification ID for SCJP1, SCBCD1, SCWCD1, right? So a student can do multiple certifications, and the same certification can be done by multiple students also. That is when we have the many-to-many mapping. So when we are trying to associate with the class, we specify the many-to-many. But, we can specify the same kind of association in the certificate also. We try to get the certificates that a specific employee, let's say, or a student, we specify the student here, if they are associating with a student. And it's a collection. So when a student does a list of certificates, like more than one certificate, we have a set which accommodates it. So those are different kind of mapping that we have in Hibernate. So folks, how do we do many-to-many mapping in the database? Folks, anyone, any idea on how do we do many-to-many mapping at the database level? So when you have one-to-many, we have, we create two tables and we have a foreign key constraint, right? So how do we have many-to-many mapping in the database? Folks, there is nothing wrong if we specify if still something is wrong. Folks, just guesses like, there's nothing wrong. Yes,
What
we have to create. Yes, we have to create a third table wherein we map both these things, right? It cannot be done with just two tables. We have to create the third table to do those mappings. I mean, we have to create a third table to map these two entities in a many mapping. Folks, we call it as a component mapping wherein we have one class. It has a reference to another class. Let's say I have an employee class, and in the employee class I have an address reference. I have an employee class and I have an address reference. So how do I actually have it? Let's say this is my employee class. I have an employee reference. Means so there is a class address and I have a reference to the address class from the employee class. That's how a class will be, and address is going to have its own respective fields. So let's say street, city, state, and a bit. We do the component mapping. When we have one class that is referencing to a number variable, it has a number variable which refers to another class, right? This is what we have. We have a member variable. This is a variable, right? Which refers to another class. It's referring to address class, right? Wherein we do this mapping. As a component, we say name. This name is the variable name in the employee class. This variable. Excuse me. This address, what we seeing here is the variable here. Is here. So let's say address one, right? It here the name has to be changed as address one. Name is basically the property name in the Java class. And what kind of a class variable it is? It's address class. It's basically the class name. When you say class, it is the class name. Class attribute is used to specify the class name. And then, of course, we have to do the mapping for address class also. So when we're specifying this, we have to do, let's say we have an address table, we have to map the class. I think it's by mistake we have certificate here. When we have address class, we have to do the mapping for address class. And books, we were talking about the annotations, right? So instead of doing the mapping in the XML file, what is the mapping that we are doing? We say, let's say, this table is associated with the specific class, right? Instead of mapping that in an XML file, we specify that at the class itself. So about the class, we specify entity and table name is equal to employee. So we are saying this is an entity and it's mapped with the specific table. The name of the table is employee. And with each property level, we map with which column it is mapped, and ID is a kind of a primary key, and we are saying it has a generated value. Then we have mentioned here in our mapping file, we have mentioned it as a generator classification, right? So the mapping which we are saying it as an auto-generated value, we are specifying it in annotation itself, and we are saying the first name is mapped with the first name attribute. Property is mapped with the property is mapped with the column first underscore name, and we are mapping each property with the column.
Okay, can you just repeat that once again? I'm sorry.
No. What do you want me to repeat?
No, this part. Only just the annotation part.
Yes. Annotation is basically, instead of specifying the mapping in an XML file, we specify the mapping right in the entity class itself, the Java class itself. When you say iterate something, this is what we call it as an annotation. So the mapping class, we map it as iterate entity, and we use iterate table to map it with a specific table. We are mapping it with the employee table. The employee class, we are mapping with an employee table. So this is the name of the table here. And each column, we map which Java variable or fields that we have, we map it with the specific column. We say @ID is specified as a primary key, and we are mapping it with the column ID, and we are saying it's auto-generated by specifying the annotation @generated value, and we are mapping each field with the specific column. So annotation is basically, instead of doing the mapping in an XML file, we specify the mapping using annotations in the Java class itself. So, folks, do you understand annotations? It is just replacing the mapping file with annotations.
In that case, we need not go with the mapping file at all?
No, we don't need a mapping file at all.
Okay, so in the configuration file also, we didn't mention anything.
We specify the resource this is getting used, but we don't have any
mapping file name.
Mapping file. We don't need to create any mapping.
Yeah.
Neha, in the program also we have iterate, override, annotation, right? So how will it differentiate? How will the compiler differentiate?
No, when we say like this word override is the method we use when you have a method that is defined in the super class. When you override the method, this annotation is used to specify that we are overriding this method. I mean, each annotation is not the same. Each annotation has its own usage basically. We use override to say that this method is being overridden in this class. But the purpose of these annotations are different. Like we are saying, this class is the entity class. We are mapping this class with this specific table, and we are saying the specific field, the first name, is mapped with the first name column. We have different annotations, right?
Okay, so
ID at genetic value.
Yes, we are saying, see, whatever the configuration that we made here, whatever the mapping that we made here, we're telling it. We said, this is the ID, right? And it's generated, right? So that is what we're specifying in the annotation itself. Whatever the information that we're providing in the mapping file, we are providing the same information in the form of annotation.
Okay, and just before this, like when you talked about the com name, and is that valid for every kind of one-to-many or one-to-one or whatever it is?
What is the annotation?
No, not about the annotation, about the com name and the component that you have given there. Do we have to do that for everything, one-to-one relationship or one-to-many and everything?
When we are referencing to when we don't use comment, we can use a set. When you're doing one-to-many, we use a set. Or we can use a list to do one-to-many mapping.
Okay, so we don't need to mention the com name or create a variable or anything like that.
So when we do one-to-many mapping, we specify which class it is associated and the column on which it is getting associated, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So folks, you understand the annotations. It's a different way of specifying the mapping. One way is through an XML file, and the other is a different way of specifying the mapping through annotations. So if you compare this HVM file with the class which is provided with annotations, you see they are specifying the same thing here. Any doubts in annotation? Yeah.
Which is the better way, the annotation or the file?
I mean, the latest version supports annotations. Initially, in the initial version, there was only XML file, and later on they came with annotations. See, when we use annotations, like sometimes this for work, people who got used to XML files since ages, they don't want to come to annotations and they say, XML is more comfortable. And some people say, you can specify, you can check here itself on what a column is doing. When we are looking at the class itself, you can understand, how it is mapped. We don't need to look at a different mapping file, is what few people say. But the functionality is the same, whether we use annotations or whether we use an HVM file, the functionality is going to work the same way.
Neha, Rajesh here. I just want to know, is it possible to have we can display the mapping through the annotation?
Yes, everything what we could do in an HVM file is possible to specify with annotations.
Can we see an example or?
Yes. I mean, I can send you those some examples to you. I mean, I can send you some examples. Folks, do you understand the purpose of annotation?
So Neha, we have to provide annotation in every classes. In HTML, in mapping, we can provide all the classes together, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Usually we only put the related classes. We don't, if you have 100 classes mapping, we don't do that in a single mapping. We create different files.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So the related classes, we try to put them in a single mapping.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and next we have the Hibernate query language. The Hibernate query language is object-oriented query language wherein we query on the classes and not on the tables. We don't operate on the tables and columns. We operate on the persistent objects and the properties. So if I want to fetch from an employee table, I want to fetch data from an employee table. This employee is not the table name.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website H2KInfosys.com. On our website H2KInfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.